A great many years ago, while the Panhandle Railroad was being built, some laborers lived in shanties a short distance from Coshocton, Ohio. Among these was a beautiful Irish girl, Mary Mohaney. Mary loved a young man in the settlement, and he proved unworthy of her love. He deserted her, and she went and hung herself to a great oak tree in the vicinity. Time wore on, and many years afterward, a party of hunters was passing the oak tree, when one of them paused under it. While there, his gun was accidentally discharged and killed him. He proved to be the betrayer of poor Mary, and now parties in that vicinity have seen in the dead hour of night the forms of Mary, the young man, and a large black dog passing the ill-fated oak.
They claim that our eyes will just be created a slightly different from what they are. When we talk, we see things are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. Allison,
Yes,
how are you doing tomorrow?
yet to be determined.
How are you doing tonight?
Okay.
Good to know. On tonight's show, first, we'll be talking with Angelica, who has a Flannel Man story for us. And then we'll be revisiting our Black Dog series with Black Dogs of Ohio.
Are we doing every state?
Yeah, probably. We'll see. We'll see how long we hold out there. It's just going to be an occasional thing. We're not doing them all in a row. Like I think we did Maryland, a month and a half ago? A little while back. So just every now and then we'll pop in and do a show on the Black Dog ghosts of a certain region. Before we get started tonight, I want to thank everyone who's donated to the GoFundMe. Thank you so much. It is a massive help. Again, this is for new tech for Strange Familiars. If we do not get it, the show will go on. There's no danger of us stopping. I know these are uncertain times, so please, only if you can afford it. And if you want to help us out, there's a GoFundMe link in the show notes. There's links. I did posts on strangefamiliars.com, Instagram, and Facebook as well. And if you can afford to help us out, it does help a great deal. Thanks to everyone who's donated so far. And you have an announcement. You're going to be back at State Theater 2 Saturdays in a row.
Some of my friends and I are, what's the polite way to put this? Offloading our junk. No, we're having a yard sale outside of the theater for things that are just need to get moving.
Yeah, so part of reselling is you accumulate things, and
some of which you meant to purchase. Some come with things you purchased that are in a lot. Sometimes they're things that you thought would be really swell. And then a year and a half later, you go, maybe there's someone out there that still thinks it's swell for $1.
Right. So it's going to be highly discounted items.
Extremely discounted.
And you're going to be sort of on the sidewalk in front of State Theater Vintage.
We're going to be in the, there's like an overhang.
An overhang.
Yeah. That way so it can be rain or shine. Hopefully shine.
It's going to start in the morning, right?
Yeah, we're going to go like from 9 till 1-ish or 2, maybe a little later if things are hopping.
Right on. All right, so people can stop by and check out your wares.
Yeah, I think there's something else going on in Columbia that day might have related to the curiosity shop town.
Okay.
I think so. There's always stuff to do.
Yeah.
So if you want to make a little trip,
State Theater Vintage is on Locust Street in Columbia, and stop by and you can check out your sort of sidewalk sale, and then they can go in and check out the rest of the store while they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank everybody who stopped by for the book signing there last week as well. Thank you so much.
Even Chad showed up, and I wasn't sure if it was Chad at first because he was in a helmet, and then he said to me, well, I'm the only one that has a specific kind of Enfield motorcycle. And I was like, as if I could look at that and recognize that was an Enfield motorcycle.
John showed up too.
Yeah. So. That was nice. John's always very supportive.
All right, let's go ahead and talk to Angelica. I'd like to welcome Angelica to Strange Familiars. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. And you hit me with two of the magic words, Flannel Man, when you wrote in. I'm excited to get these stories, and you have a few other stories besides. But if you don't mind, let's start with Flannel Man, because he's a character that keeps coming up on Strange Familiars. We haven't had a Flannel Man story in a little while.
Yeah, so I've seen him actually, I think like 3 or 4 times now.
Wow.
One of the first times I seen him was where my apartment is. Our bedroom and bathroom are across from each other, and you can see in the living room. And he was sitting like on the couch as I'm walking out of the bathroom to go back into the bedroom after going to the bathroom. And he was just kind of sitting there, and he is looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and it's just this guy, like in a red button-down flannel and a big scruffy beard. And I'm like just kind of staring at him because I'm like, man, there's a strange man sitting on my couch at 3 a.m, like, you know, the witching hour, how it goes.
Yeah.
And I was going to go in the bedroom to wake my partner up, and then I turned towards the bedroom to go in there. But by the time I come back out, he's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it was weird. The next day, though, I did like choke. I don't know. I've heard people say that they associate Flannel Man with, like, you know, the Grim Reaper and other things like that. So it was weird because the very next day I was like choking, and my partner had to give me the Heimlich remover.
That's an interesting detail. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know with him. You know, like
I don't know either.
Yeah.
But
yeah, maybe not. You know, I'm not saying he couldn't be. I'm just saying I don't know. But that's an interesting detail for sure. Had you just woken up from a dream or something at the time?
Yeah, I've always kind of had very vivid dreams to where they're very like surreal and seem like there's a lot going on in there all the time. And then like every time I have like dreams like that, I always see, you know, like Flannel Man the next day, or, you know, shadow figures and other things like that.
See, to me, that's very, very interesting too. Do you remember like having one of these dreams that night?
I don't remember specifically the dream, but I do remember waking up before that, getting up to go to the bathroom in a sweat. And then I looked at the time, and it's like 3:15, and I'm just like, oh, that's my favorite time in the night.
Yeah, that's interesting. So did he just look like a normal, real human being sitting on your couch?
No, just a normal guy sitting there. He had like, you know, he looked just like a lumberjack. He had like a scruffy beard, and like it was like a dark brown color, and he was just sitting there in his flannel and his, you know, jeans. And when I went back into my bedroom and I woke up my partner, and he's like, what? And I was like, yeah. He's like, that's a big deal. That is somebody. You need to record that. And I'm like, oh. So that was like one of the first times I've seen him, was that time. And that was early in 2023.
Okay. All right.
And that's since moving to Colorado. So I used to live in Deep East Texas, and then I moved here, and that's when I've only seen him here, except for one time I did see him in Deep East Texas driving home from Pizza Hut where I worked. And there's this road you have to take, and you know, Texas is void of life everywhere if you live in Deep East Texas. And so I have to take like a 20-minute drive home, and there's this part of this road that the locals call Dead Man's Curve. And I'm going down that road probably a little too fast because it's kind of creepy out there in the pitch black. And I'm coming around the curve, and there's this man in a flannel shirt standing just directly in the middle of the road, like just standing there. I didn't stop because, you know, I'm not dumb, but I swerved around him. But he was just standing there in the middle of the road.
Yeah. And so was that before you moved to Colorado?
That was before I moved to Colorado. That was like right before I moved to Colorado. Like we already discussed moving to Colorado. We already had our apartment set up and everything like that. I think it was about a week before I left for Colorado.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I know it's, you know, it was at night, you were driving, you were, you know, trying not to hit a pedestrian that was in the middle of the road. But did he look like the same guy that was sitting on the couch, do you think?
It was the same guy, but he was in a different color flannel, almost like it was like white with like blue stripes, almost kind of like, you know, like an old farmer guy out there. But he still had the brown scruffy hair and beard and stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't really stop to find out though.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
I was like, it's 12 in the morning on this road with no phone signal and nobody around here. There's no houses. I'm not about to find out what that is.
Exactly. Sure. Wow. Okay, so that's two.
That is too. And I've also seen him a third time in the same apartment. So I'm in a different apartment now. And when you're in the bathroom of the old apartment, if you're looking in the bathroom mirror, you can see the couch in the living room behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in there, doing my skincare and cleaning and stuff like that. And I just feel like, I'm being watched. I'm like, okay, I'm home alone. There's nobody here. So then I look up into the mirror and I can see him, same guy, sitting on the couch. And he's looking into the mirror at me, into my face. And I was just like shocked. I was like, but I wasn't like scared. I didn't have like a feeling that he had ill intentions or he was there to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just still like weird though that there's a guy sitting on the couch. And I kind of sat there and stared at him for a second, and then I turned around to look, face him, but by the time I turned my back and looked at him, he wasn't there.
Wow, what time of day was that one, roughly?
That was just midday, in the middle of the day, because my partner, he was at work and I was just at home hanging out.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
And did anything weird, unusual, otherwise around the time of these other two sightings, did anything happen that you remember,
Well, the last one, my cat, she was kind of acting weird and chasing things that I didn't see. And the sound the cats make where they go,
mm-hmm.
She was looking at the wall, making that sound. And I'm just like, I don't see anything there, but okay.
Well, it's worth noting.
But cats, I feel like cats can have a connection to those kind of things.
Cats and dogs, I've heard many people say it. They'll sit there and they'll stare at things, and sometimes you think, oh, they're just being cats and dogs, and other times people really get the feeling that they're locked in on something. So yeah, I mean, their senses go beyond what ours do. So I think it's quite possible.
Like my dog, if I'm here hanging out and I'll be in bed and he'll look right out the door. And he'll hunker his head down and he'll growl real deep and he'll stand up and start walking towards something, growling and barking. And I'm like, I come out here, there's nothing, but something had him really upset.
Yeah. Any answer will do. There's, and who knows is an acceptable answer. But do you have any clue what you think it might be?
No. I mean, I've always kind of had I feel like a connection to seeing things like this. And I've always seen, as long as I can remember, I've seen shadow figures and stuff like that. So honestly, I'm not too surprised, but also I'm sometimes a little weird. I'm like, I don't know what this is or why they're around me.
It was your boyfriend who told you that this is a recurring thing, like Flannel Man, if we have to give it a name.
Yeah.
Is a thing, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He was like, you're not the only one. I was like, what? I was like, really? He's like, man, go listen to his podcast and you'll hear all these different people who've, seen similar things to you. And I'm like, I didn't even know other people knew that, had that experience or dealt with that.
My wife included. She woke up and standing at our feet one night.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. Yeah.
The shadow figures will do that. Will stand at the end of my bed or they'll stand, in my room. I'll just wake up and they'll be hunched over in the corner, just standing there. I can't tell where their eyes are at, but it looks like they're looking at me.
Right. Give me one more question before we get into the other encounters about Flannel Man or, vaguely related to him. Have you any time in your life had any kind of encounter or maybe an intense dream involving a strange situation with black dogs? Maybe they might be, it might be real life, but it might be just a black dog in a weird situation. Anything involving black dogs like that.
In my dreams, I've definitely had, some dreams where, I call them in my dreams hellhounds kind of things where they're chasing me and they're black things on all four legs that are barking at me and coming after me. But I've also, this is, speaking of black dogs, I personally owned a black dog that was not okay. There was something off in her. She was real intense, crazy. She was weird. I don't even know how to describe it. She was very intense and very aggressive from the day I got her until, we had to, euthanize her. She was very intense, crazy dog. And she was black too. So that's weird that you brought that.
Well, the dream is interesting too, because my wife in the room where we saw the Flannel Man was her childhood bedroom. We were staying at her parents' house that night, and she always said that she would see she called them demon dogs, I think, in there, in her room. It's interesting that you would phrase like being chased by hellhounds. Very, very interesting. Again, don't know what the connection is between Flannel Man and black dogs, but I noticed that pattern over time as well. A lot of people seem to have something with both. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
It almost kind of goes with the, me hearing people say that he's like, kind of like a Grim Reaper. Maybe those are like his, little dogs he uses to rein in on people.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, the other thing is, like, a lot of people have said that they felt like he's, warned them against an accident. I mean, maybe that guy in the road there caused you to delay just enough where you didn't have an accident down the road or something, mm-hmm. or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anything like I've had people say that he's a positive entity. I don't know. I don't think it's super positive showing up and just staring at people.
No.
I think, you could, if you're positive, you could work on your approach there a little better. But yeah, I don't necessarily want to say he's, a negative entity either. I think who knows, who knows?
I mean, he doesn't feel, when I've seen him, he doesn't feel threatening by any means, but mm-hmm. It's still really surely surprising to see, just a man in the room that you're in hanging out.
Of course. Yeah. Oh no, that's, yeah. Anytime you wake up and something's there that shouldn't be is stunning. All right. So these shadow people, now I've heard them described. I've never seen one of them. I've never seen Flannel Man either, to my knowledge, but never seen a shadow person. I don't think I've seen shadowy things like in the woods. I'm not sure if it's the same kind of idea, but I've heard people describe these shadow people in different ways, and some people say they're like shadows, almost not solid black. They look shadowy, and I've heard other people say no, they're blacker than black. They look, they stand out against the darkness. Mm-hmm. What would you say the ones you see look like?
I say they're blacker than black. Like if my room's pitch black, I can definitely like line them out in the darkness in the room, or mm-hmm. even at, night outside. And I've seen a couple of them who kind of have spaces in their blackness where eyes would be, but there's no life to them or light or anything. Reflection is just lighter there than the rest of their figure.
Oh, that's interesting. How long have you seen them?
I want to say, I think my first one I can remember, because, trauma, is probably when I was 14, 15 at my first job that I worked at. When I was a dog groomer. So, I am a dog groomer still. But that was my first job, and I was bathing for them, and I was in the bathing room alone, and there was just, a figure standing in the corner, out of the corner of my eye, and I look, and it's not, when I look at it straight on, it's not there. But after that one, they started coming around, a lot more, and I've seen them a lot more. Mm-hmm. And then I also see them more intensely in deep East Texas when I go to visit my family. I don't know what it is about East Texas or the Deep South, but when I'm out there, I can just feel the presence immediately, just this heavy weight on my shoulders, and they're a lot more out there compared to, where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. I also see them a lot more when my anxiety or stress levels are higher. If I'm stressed out or, upset,
yeah,
I feel them and see them a lot more.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if it makes sense, but I mean, that sort of tracks, I think. Mm-hmm. I think we get in these, I don't know, things that upset our normal rhythm, mm-hmm. and I think sometimes these things can kind of squeak through, or maybe we can, because we're, our normal rhythm's upset, we can access seeing them better or something, I wish I knew the rules.
I wish I knew too.
So you said you've seen them in your bedroom? Like just wake up and they're there?
Yeah, I'll just wake up, because I have, insomnia. And so I'll wake up sometimes and just be laying there, and I'll open my eyes and they'll just be sometimes standing over me on my side of the bed, looking down, like I feel like, well, they're bent over me, looking at me in the face. Or I don't know if that's more of like them or if that's more of like sleep paralysis. Or sometimes I'll see them like, I'll sit up to go to the bathroom or check on my dogs, and I'll see them hunched over in the corner, just standing there. Some of them feel like almost threatening, like where I'm like, my anxiety like instantly shoots up where I like go into fight or flight mode. I'm just, get nervous and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't even know why this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Of all the people I talked to, I think, a few that have seen them have said, no, they're fine. I don't get a bad feeling from them. Everybody else is either neutral or known. I don't like them. I don't like anything leaning over me at night.
No, those ones are creepy. No,
Yeah.
Why are you over my bed right now?
Yeah.
I've also seen them, like where I work currently right now, we're backed up right up against a cemetery. And when I'm there alone, like I'll be grooming or whatever, and I'll just see like a figure of a man usually just walk across the like receptionist room and out the door. I mean, the door doesn't open, but that's where they go towards, is the door.
Mm-hmm.
And we're right up against a cemetery, so it's not really surprising to me, but weird things also happen sometimes. Like one time I was vacuuming when I was there by myself, and the vacuum just turned off. No fuses were blown or anything. Like the switch on the vacuum got pushed. I even heard it click. And I just stop and look around, and, obviously no one's there. I'm by myself grooming, but.
Right. Yeah. So the figures you see, they're still shadow figures, the ones like you talked about. Okay. And are they about normal human height?
Those ones up there, they're normal human height. The ones that I see in my bedroom are usually pretty tall.
Yeah.
To the ceiling, usually. Some of them are, kind of hunched over. So I don't know how tall they really are, but at their hunched over height, I would probably say they're, I don't know, I'm going to say 6 feet, because my apartment ceilings, I think, are like 8.
Again, I've never seen those, so I don't know what to make of them. But
Me either.
Trust your gut, I guess. If you're getting not a good feeling, then. So what do you do then? Like, do you kind of
like really anxious, and I'll just, turn over and look at my phone and play on my phone. Sometimes I'll wake my boyfriend up to make him awake, because for some reason when he's awake, he has a very strong presence, in my opinion. So if I wake him up, they usually don't bother me or are around as often if he is awake or is, versus if he's asleep and I'm all awake by myself, then I feel like they mess with me more than, when he's awake. I don't know what it is about his presence, but he seems threatening, I guess, to them.
Now, do they just completely go away, or sometimes are they still there when he's awake?
Sometimes some of them are there when he's awake. Like, I've seen them before standing behind him, but those ones don't feel like threatening, versus the other ones who feel threatening when he's awake and up and like upset, they're not around.
Have you ever tried to point them out to him? Like, hey, it's, yeah.
And he says, there's nothing there. And I'm like, it's right there.
See,
I don't see anything.
I wonder about that. Like, if I was around someone who could see them, I wonder if there's just something that I couldn't pick up for whatever reason, That's interesting. Wow. So are you able to generally just ignore them? I mean, the thing I always tell people is like, people are like, oh, how could someone live in a haunted house? Like, well, you have to live, and life goes on, and sometimes you can't just drop everything and move, and you learn to live with this stuff. Is that basically what you're doing?
Yeah, that's what I do. Most of them I can ignore and just go about my day and be like, oh, you're there. Hey, how's it going? And just keep going on with my life. I think the place we're in currently is haunted, because as soon as I moved in here, like my dreams got so more vivid and like real intense, creepy dreams involving them and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't get restful sleep since being here. And I think that's why, it's because it's haunted. Or there's presence here. My cat also will chase things that are not here.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think there's a connection between dreams and this stuff. I haven't cracked the code on that. I haven't cracked the code on any of this stuff, but just from the amount of people I've talked to and my own experiences, it's just like, wow, it really feels like there's some kind of connection. Don't know what it is. Don't know how it works, but it just feels like there's something important about that.
Mm-hmm. Because you're at your weakest point when you're sleeping.
Possibly. I think, like I often say, I think they can reach us easier when we're dreaming. And that's why so many people will have these intense encounters and then go right back to sleep, and I think it's just like, they want you asleep because you're easier to reach when you're sleeping.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Some of them I can't go back to sleep after. I'm like, man, I need to watch some like Disney Channel or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely get that. So you mentioned sleep paralysis, and you said you didn't know if you were having sleep paralysis. And I'm going to say from the get, like, you would probably know, but have you ever had sleep paralysis where you were sure, like, oh, I am paralyzed, I cannot move right now?
I've only had it once that I can recall. I'm a stomach sleeper, so it was pretty, creepy to be laying down on my any sleep paralysis would be creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't, see anything, and I only could, move my eyes and stuff, but I could definitely feel like there was a presence with me in the room. I was just, sleeping, and I wake up and I can't move anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And my eyes are open, and I was just like, okay. I was like, okay, you got to stay calm. And I just closed my eyes back and tried to go back to sleep. And I don't know how long I sat there with my eyes closed, trying to just ignore whatever's above me that I can't see. I was like, just keep your eyes closed. I'm like, don't think about it. Don't think about it. And I just eventually fell back to sleep. But that's the only time I recall having sleep paralysis.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty disturbing state to be in, and often when people say, I don't know if I was in sleep, I was like, well, you probably weren't. Like, you tend to know. I think it tends to be pretty, unless, I've had people who've had sleep paralysis so much they get used to it, and they're like, yeah, I'm fine with it, I can get myself out of it, whatever. But if it's not something, most people get it a few times, in their life, they're not going to get it with great frequency like that. And if you only get it a few times, you know when it's happened. It's not a pleasant thing, for sure.
It's not. Neither. I get night terrors too, so those aren't very pleasant either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is probably all connected. Who can say for sure?
So. Oh. I had a night terror the other night where even my boyfriend woke up because I was sleeping, and in my dream, there was a big huntsman spider in the bed for whatever reason. That's my biggest fear, so I guess that's why, because I have arachnophobia. And I remember sitting up in my dream saying, oh my God, there's a spider in the bed, panicking. And then my boyfriend says that I actually sat up in my sleep and was like screaming that there's a spider in the bed. I don't remember that part, but then I remember waking up confused because he's shaking me. He's like, where's the spider? What spider are you talking about? And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what are you saying to me?
Hopefully that will fade. I don't know that. I know sleep paralysis fades as you get older, but hopefully, I hope for you that will fade, because that cannot be pleasant.
No, I don't like, no. The night terrors have, relaxed a little bit. I used to wake up, like panic, scream crying, like inconsolable when I was younger as a child. So they've kind of sparsed themselves out, and they don't happen as often, but they're not as intense as that where I was inconsolable.
Yeah.
Because, I think almost every single house I feel like I've lived in has been haunted, except for one.
Well, I often say maybe it's not the house that's haunted. Maybe
I know, they just follow me.
Maybe it's the people who are haunted, yeah. Which is, may not be super comforting, but
no.
Then again, I think apartments, because of the, people always think you need a big old Victorian mansion to be haunted or something. I get more stories from apartments.
I think so. There's a lot more going on in apartments than,
Yep.
The people who lived here before us were an elderly couple, and they said before we were allowed to move in, they're like, we have to paint and tear up the carpets. And I'm like, well, that's a little concerning, but
Yeah, what people are moving in and out is, we talk about this, again, like I was saying, this kind of liminality that kind of stirs things up. And even people in regular houses say, "Oh yeah, the haunting stuff happened when we started to refurb the house and stuff." Well, apartments, like you said, they're almost constantly being, at least little things being done between residents, if not like major things being done. There's constantly work being done. There's constantly people moving in and out. They are the definition of liminal spaces sometimes, I think. So yeah.
And it's an older apartment complex, so
It's had plenty.
well, not old, but like 90s.
Yeah,
so.
it's had plenty of people moving in and out and that kind of activity. Yeah.
I have had a couple, seeing people move room to room. At my last job I worked at, the boss even, she was close to my age too. She's like, well, I'm the only one who's seen it before, but she's like, I've seen this man in a white shirt walk from the one hallway down to the other hallway. I was like, that's weird, because I was like, I see things like that all the time. And, one day I was working in the kennel room, and some man in a white t-shirt and, like blue pants. I couldn't see his face. He was away from me. Walked from one door to the other door. Just, walking around.
Well, I hope that if you see Flannel Man again, it's a calm, good experience for you. I hope that there's nothing else in it. You may. I think people who see him repeated times, I think that, the chances, once you've seen him more than once, I think the chances kind of go up. Now, this is just based on people I've talked to. Like, I don't, again, I don't know the rules. But based on the people I talked to, I think the chances go up that, you may see him again. If you do, I'd love to hear about it. And again, I hope it's not a shocking or scaring experience. But you know where I am if it does happen. And on the morning of April 18th, 1961, Joe Simonton saw a silver disc on his farm. He went out, investigated, and stepped aboard the craft. There he encountered 3 dark-skinned humanoids who handed him an empty jug. Joe filled it with water and brought it back for them. In return, they gave him some pancakes. Angelica, would you eat the pancakes?
Is there a right answer?
I'm sorry?
I would probably eat the pancakes.
You would? All right. Yeah, I mean, there's no right answer at all. My answer changes like quite frequently. So,
well, I just got a UFO tattoo, so I would eat the pancakes.
All right. No hesitation, just right down the hatch. All right.
I was like, oh, you're offering me pancakes? All right, I like free food. Okay.
Very good. I do like a pancake. All right, Angelica, thanks so much for sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Strange Familiars is brought to you by our patrons. Thank you, patrons. We could not make the show without your help. If you like Strange Familiars and you'd like to help us make the show and get extra content besides, you can become a patron at Patreon. It's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. All of our patrons get commercial-free versions of the weekly show, plus extra content. We do at least one exclusive episode for our patrons every month. Sometimes we do more. To check it out, go to patreon.com/strangefamiliars. Our Patreon patrons also get to take place in an ongoing paranormal experiment, which has kicked off. I'm getting some interesting results from that, but it's not too late to jump in. You can literally jump in and take part in that at any time, as long as you're a patron at Patreon. Once again, patreon.com/strangefamiliars. There is also an option on Apple Podcasts. The program is called Patron of the Strange there, and our Apple Podcast subscribers also get the commercial-free shows weekly and the bonus shows monthly. And very soon, we will be starting YouTube memberships. Go ahead, please sign up and become a member of the Strange Familiars channel at YouTube. We're just at Strange Familiars. It's free to follow the channel, but we will be starting memberships there as well. And the YouTube memberships will also get the bonus shows monthly. And once again, thanks to our patrons, no matter where they're signed up. Thank you so much. Okay, back to the black dogs. There's not a lot for Ohio. I thought there'd be more. This is what I found.
There could be a whole flap of black
There's
dogs.
probably a lot more. This is what I found doing some newspaper searches. So the first one is from the Weekly Republican from Plymouth, Indiana.
It's
about Ohio. From February 3rd, 1870.
Louisville has a ghost sensation. It appears in different forms. First, as an elephant having a man's head. The next night, it was a deer with the same human head, and then a huge black dog having still the same human face. A ghost sensation.
That to me is very creepy. And that was Louisville, Ohio, by the way. Okay. I did check that to make sure there's a Louisville in Ohio, and that it wasn't a column about Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I know it was Ohio. But very strange ghost. An elephant with a human head. That's odd. And then a deer with a human head, and then
how well known were elephants at this time? I mean, 1870.
I'm sure people had seen drawings of them at least.
Yeah, I guess so.
Local circuit. When did Jumbo tour the country?
I want to. Let me look it up. Yeah, I can't remember now. I can see the picture of him being accidentally electrocuted,
and then it was Jumbo and Jumbo's a stuffed Jumbo after he died, and his bones.
Yeah, because then he got a double Barnum got a double feature out of it.
Yeah,
he was born in Christmas Day, 1860, in the Sudan. That may or may not be true.
Yeah, I'm doubting they don't know what day.
And he died September 15th, 1885. So that would have been right around the time. I guess this would have been during.
Did they tour him for 15 years?
I'm not sure if they got him right away or when he was a little older.
And anyway, I think people were generally familiar with what elephants.
Yeah, Jumbo, because he really had a presence, and he was on, biscuit boxes and such.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Our second story is from the Times-Picayune from New Orleans from March 21st, 1880.
I'm going to say that because I have never actually heard that term spoken aloud, that I'd say it in my head a lot of different ways. That area of New Orleans.
Oh.
But this is about Conshohocken, Ohio, though, right? Which, there's a Conshohocken... Or this is Conshohocken. Sorry. I was confusing it with Pennsylvania. Conshohocken. Okay. A spook story. Pretty Mary Mohaney and her false lover. Suicide of the girl and death of the lover under the same tree. How the departed spirits alarmed a superstitious young man from Conshohocken, Ohio. Saturday night, a little episode occurred that revives in the memories of our eldest inhabitants a mournful tragedy of many years ago. In the autumn of 1851, while the Panhandle Railroad was being built, there was, about 1/2 mile east of our town, near where the Beach Hollows mines are now situated, a cluster of boarding shanties in which the laborers took their meals on the first floor and at night climbed into the loft and spread themselves promiscuously upon the floor, and slept and swore until morning.
Just cussing in their sleep.
That's the nature of it. In one of these boarding shanties lived a buxom, handsome girl named Mary Mohaney, upon which all the brawny laborers smiled sweetly. But Mary reserved her affections for a particular person, and in the course of time, it became apparent that the sweet Mary, as she was familiarly termed, had loved not wisely, but too well. Mm-hmm. And her friends began to jeer her.
I think they're saying Mary's a certain type of person with maybe low morals. I think that's what they're implying.
It does seem that way. Well, I think they started off, I think it's a stereotype based on her buxom, handsome nature.
Mm. I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm a fan. Just
And when the destroyer of her happiness fled and left her alone in her misery, Mary's heart came near breaking, and she could not stand the heartless jibes and jeers of her associates. And one fine morning in the delightful October of 1851, when all nature seemed smiling, The handsome form of Mary was found hanging to a giant oak near the shanty. She was buried and in time forgotten.
Now, do you think they're suggesting that she had become pregnant and her lover
maybe.
left her?
I guess that's probably what happened. 9 years later, a party of Nimrods.
Which means hunter, or, was a well-known term for a hunter back then. But
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, it just came to mean something.
Yeah, I think Bugs Bunny. You know what it is?
Okay.
Because Bugs Bunny called Elmer Fudd a Nimrod. People started using Nimrod as an insult, but it refers to a biblical hunter. So back then, pre-Bugs Bunny, this was not an insult. It was just calling them hunters.
He's a real maroon. 9 years later, a party of Nimrods from our town were in that neighborhood hunting, and among the number was the betrayer of sweet Mary. While standing beneath the very tree to which she had hanged herself, his gun was accidentally discharged, and he was instantly killed. A terrible and just retribution to the destroyer of the sweet young life of the handsome Irish lass. For some time after that, it was claimed by parties who passed by the scene of the tragedies after night that the ghosts of the two parties, accompanied by a big black dog that accompanied the deceased Nimrod, on his hunting expeditions, appeared. In time, too, this was forgotten, but Saturday night it was all brought to memory again in its startling form. As a young man employed at the mines made his way homeward at a late hour, and nearing the spot where the tragedies occurred, he was suddenly startled at the appearance of the ghosts. The man dressed in solemn, somber black, and the woman in ghost-like white, while the veritable black dog, seen years before, ran ahead of them, and as they passed, the woman gave forth doleful and heart-rending appeals to her destroyer, while he replied in deep and guttural curses. The young man took to his heels, and nothing since can induce him to leave his room. The miners employed at the mines were greatly excited, and many of the more superstitious are threatening to leave the dwellings they occupy, so great are their fears. There is quite a little village at the mines, but after night there is not a person to be seen outside the walls of the houses. The excitement in town is great, and there is talk of organizing a company tonight and to watch for the spiritual visitors.
Poor Mary. Even chasing them after death.
That is very sobering. That she just can't get away from this dude. She even brings
Or he can't get away from her.
You think he's just...
I'm not defending him, by the way. This is the same story. This article, it's just worded differently, but we'll go ahead and read it. There might be a little bit different here. This is from the Jackson Standard, Jackson, Ohio, from the 25th of March, 1880. It's interesting that the Ohio paper publishes it after the New Orleans paper.
A great many years ago, while the Panhandle Railroad was being built, so the story goes, some laborers lived in shanties a short distance from Coshocton, Ohio. Among these was a beautiful Irish girl, Mary Mohaney. Mary loved a young man in the settlement, and he proved unworthy of her love. He deserted her, and she went and hung herself to a great oak tree in the vicinity. Time wore on, and many years afterward a party of hunters was passing the oak tree, when one of them paused under it. While there, his gun was accidentally discharged and killed him. He proved to be the betrayer of poor Mary, and now parties in that vicinity have seen in the dead hour of night the forms of Mary, the young man, and a large black dog passing the ill-fated oak. There will doubtless be a great deal of mysterious shaking of heads and many half-whispered conversations over this spook story in the neighborhood. Men will load their blunderbusses and watch. Women and children will cling to the inside of the houses after night, and brave youths will threaten dire vengeance upon the wandering spooks. But the fellow that sees them will be alone in every instance, and there is no probability that he will stop to investigate. I like that part about the fellow. He will be alone.
Yeah. I wonder if that story appears in ghost story books in Ohio still, because it made a few papers around.
I mean, it is sort of like a classic story, right?
Yeah.
It's got a lot of tropes of like a woman in white, someone dressed in black.
Man in black dog.
This sort of ill-fated love story.
Yeah, jilted lover. And I wonder if it appears in ghost story books from Ohio. If people have any, let me know. I'm just interested if it does. And B, I wonder if anybody's done any research on her to see if she was indeed a real person.
It's a
very common name.
Very common name.
Yeah. Our last Black Dog story is from the News Herald, Hillsboro, Ohio, March 24th, 1886. And I believe this fellow had a regular column in the paper, and that's why it says Tramp Printer. I think that's his sort of pen name. So
okay.
The Tramp Printer. So it's several pages there.
Earlier this evening, Tim handed me this piece of paper in another form and said, "Is this too small to read?" And I said, "Are there words on it?"
Which answered my question.
Yeah, it was too small to read for someone who has bifocals. Not because they are old, but because their eyes are. Which I'm going to take my glasses off to read.
All right.
Which is the great irony of purchasing bifocals and then still not being able to see. Among Ghosts and Hobgoblins being a choice collection of little tales of the unknown and unknowable. The Earl's Fancy, The Black Dog, Only a Nightmare, A Strange True Story, and A Parting Wall. So I guess these are little vignettes in this larger story. After all, what fools these mortals be. Ain't that the truth?
True enough.
We are. Mr. Editor, once upon a time, that is some time ago, I said something in one of my letters about a chapter on the superstitious and the mythical. Right here I may say that those who remember the promise and expect something after the manner of a scientific essay upon causes and effects will be disappointed. I shall tell but a few simple, yet thoroughly reliable anecdotes, which, though they may learn you nothing, may serve to interest and entertain you for a little while. I base my belief of this upon the well-known fact that superstition is so innate on humanity that a ghost story or any narrative of that sort is always read or listened to with eagerness, and while we pride ourselves upon our intelligence and enlightenment, will disown any belief or even vague fear of the unexplainable. We start at an unusual noise in the still hours of night, or go out in the mud to avoid passing under a ladder. You would become angry should any one charge you with a fear of bad omens, and then perhaps walk a block out of your way rather than have an innocent black cat cross the path in front of you. You laugh at the silly doctrines of the heathen Buddha or stories of African voodoos, and then lay awake all night with fear when you hear that strange and unaccountable noises she heard in the old vacant house across the way. And when it is dark and gloomy, and the cedars sigh and moan in the weird breezes of midnight, the old yellow moss-covered gravestones never loses its power to frighten you. You don't intend to be frightened at these things, but superstition, which has more things to answer for than is half suspected in this day and age, is hard to root out of human nature. Enlightenment and reason, the age of reason is only dawning, have shattered the belief in these vagaries, but it will be ages before they will be totally eradicated from human nature. But I meant to tell some stories. I have heard so many that I think will bear reproduction that I must begin at once. Here goes. This one is called The Scots Fancy. Once upon a time, when the moneyed men of the Eastern Hemisphere were beginning to find out how well it's paid to invest in some of their stray change in the frontier lands of the States, there sailed from Scotland a young man of high birth. We will call him Lord Dunraven, who in due time arrived upon a big tract of land he had purchased in beautiful Colorado. The Scotch, with their wealth of folklore, have many strange traditions, and the young lord lived to see the sparsely settled territory become a prosperous state, and still retained, among many other legends, the belief in a certain warning of approaching death in the family. One day, as he sat in his apartments in Denver, he said he heard the rolling of drums in the clouds. No reasoning could convince him that he heard them not, and he could not be laughed out of his belief. Some one of my kinsmen is dead, he said, for it has been for ages that when one of our family dies, the others, whoever they are warned by the roll of drums in the air. And the Scot sadly awaited the news that he doubted not would come. Sure enough, the word soon came that the elder laird had passed away, and the younger, while he mourned, said, "Didn't I tell you so?" Now that story sounds foolish, don't it? Yet at the time it occurred, an account of it was published in the Denver newspapers, and the story was also told to me by a prominent citizen of that city who, while he of course didn't hear the drums himself, asserted that it was reported and talked of in the city at the time with no little interest. This is the next part. It's called The Dog Followed Him. There are lots and lots of people who attribute a warning of death or misfortune to the barking of a dog when there is no visible cause therefor. I have a friend, a very intimate friend, who has sense enough to know better, but who believes in that particular omen with a fervor worthy of a better creed. I will tell you what he told me. When he was younger than he is now, He worked in a big nail factory in Steubenville. This state, I believe, he said, together with many others. One of his companions was out late one night, and when he went home, he was followed by a big black dog. When he turned to speak to the animal, it stopped, and when he tried to approach it, the dog would keep just the same distance away. When he awoke the next morning, he told his mother of the incident, and she, evidently having great faith in the omen, tearfully begged him not to go to work. He laughed at her fears, and in the words of my informant, that was the last she ever saw of him alive. Before noon, he was caught in some machinery and ground up into pieces no bigger than a finger. Ah, he added with a shake of the head, you can't tell me I've seen such things too often. And then he went on to tell how a dog barked when his grandmother died, and when his aunt's house was burned, and cited numerous other instances. It's foolish, I know, he said, but I've seen the proofs many and many a time. It was no use for me to laugh at him and tell him it made me tired to hear him talk so, and I suppose he never will get over it. One night a little group of 5 or 6 persons sat in the gloomy office of a very primitive hotel in a lonesome country town in Texas. Something had happened that day that had excited us all very much, and there was one in the group who was certain it had been foretold by the unaccountable barking of some dogs on the previous day. It was a gloomy October night, and no star could be seen through the canopy of murky clouds. A ghostly wind was making the windows rattle, and the boughs of a group of acanthus trees that grew around the lonesome and rickety old hostler creaked and groaned distantly. The conversation turned upon ghosts and kindred topics, and by the time we had exhausted our supply of hair-raising lies and separated to return to our rooms by the dim light of old-fashioned candles, it was near the hour of midnight. Now, I know I don't believe in any of that rubbish. There isn't a superstitious bone in my body, as I frequently proudly assert, and yet I was so deeply interested in some of the tales that, in spite of myself, I couldn't forget them when I reached my room. I blew the candle out and turned my face away from the window in order not to distinguish any possible form that might be made visible by passing between me and the dim light that fell through the white muslin curtains. With my mind still upon the ghost stories, I soon sank to sleep from sheer exhaustion. I don't suppose I had been asleep 5 minutes before I found myself sitting upright in bed and fairly overcome with a terrible, vague fear of something or other, and then I thought I saw a man, a burglar or assassin, between myself and the window, and when I awoke I felt so certain I had seen a man that I was almost tempted to get up and look under the bed.
Wonder if he was wearing plaid.
He could have been. It was dim. It's hard to see. But realizing that it was a nightmare, and mentally calling myself a fool, I dropped back on the pillow, determined to sleep as soon as possible. I was all trembling, and a cold sweat was up upon my forehead. The truth is, I was badly scared, but I soon slept, only to go through with the same experience again, only more so. And the second time I awoke, I was bolt upright and reaching and striking at the same imaginary murderer, who said nothing when I called out to him to keep back or beware the consequences, and who suddenly turned into nothing when I ran my fist through him 2 or 3 times. And then I was indeed scared until I fully awoke. I trembled like a leaf and felt awfully weak. No real being was ever seen more distinctly by my eyes than I seemed to see that night. I now know that there wasn't any man there, but it took me some moments to be fully convinced of it at the time. What I mean to prove by this, that we can't always help being fools.
I mean, he's describing any number of, bedroom invader type things we've had on the show.
My mind was so worked up by the foolish stories I had heard that I almost had begun to believe in the black dog business, and my imagination got the best of me. Yet that very experience makes me all the less superstitious, because I can readily see how one inclined to believe in such stuff could have magnified my invisible man into a genuine spirit and found lots of believers. And I imagine all other ghosts have similar origins. I have intended narrating a number of other similar experiences, but I have one more little story to tell. It is yet one that I believe beyond a doubt, as my informant who experienced the unaccountable phenomenon is a gentleman of intelligence and education, and whose reputation for veracity and reliability I shall never question. Nor would you if you knew him. He is a man who has had many an adventure, such as are only known to the mountaineer and plainsman, the soldier and the scout. He has stood where Fremont planted the stars and stripes upon the summit of the Rocky Mountains, and chased Indians over the west, and yet is now a quiet and prominent citizen of one of the most beautiful cities that dot the Occident. I haven't the shadow of a doubt, but that the incident he told me is strictly true, and here, as near as I can remember, is what he told me.
I love how he's like, got to give the whole preamble about like, yeah, he's a good dude. He's reliable. I promise,
Yeah. I don't believe him a whit, but this story I believe. In 1860, it's a blank. So sometime in the 1860s.
It's kind of like 1860. And I think there's another blank in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was a member of the Blank Regiment stationed at Fort Laramie. One evening, I was reading a book in the post library and became so interested that I hardly knew how rapidly twilight was approaching. As it grew too dark to see the letters easily, I moved my chair over near the window, where I sat still reading in the deepening gloom. While my eyes were resting on one page, the printed characters seemed to slowly disappear from upon the page, and as though from a dim magic lantern appeared an oval in which, as plainly as anything I ever saw in my life, I beheld my father's face. I was startled and asked myself if I was awake or dreaming. I looked again, and there I saw my father's face. His features were unmistakably to be seen upon the page, though they looked pale and waxen. While I yet looked, the miniature faded away, the oval followed the picture, and the printed letters of the book slowly floated back upon the leaf. I immediately called the attention of a sergeant to the strange incident, and we together made a note of the time. In a few days I received a letter from my house far back in the States, bearing the sad tidings of my father's demise, and when we made allowance for the difference in longitude, it was found that the death of my father had occurred at precisely the same hour I had witnessed the appearance of his picture upon the page of my book. The letter further said that his last wish was to see me again, and his last words were of me. I attribute the phenomenon to a strong magnetism as yet not understood by scientists. Were I any sort of a scientist, I would try to explain my belief in the same agent. I believe the gentleman saw his father's picture upon the book, and I believe the old gentleman died at the same hour. I'm not one who believes in effects without causes, and so I don't attribute that to the supernatural. It was powerful magnetism. What earthly agent carried it I do not know, but I believe an earthly agent did take it with electric rapidity to the fort upon the frontier, and that day is yet to be, when a similar phenomenon that can hardly be doubted will be explained. That is plausible, but it is unreasonable to suppose that any of the idiotic black dog and cat omens can indicate approaching misfortune, because no sensible person can believe that any agent could work between the unlucky signs and those who are supposed to suffer therefrom. I also suspect that the noble Scot heard a passing drum corps when he imagined he heard the long roll with flames, etc. in the air, and that it was just a coincidence that his father died at the same time. As a proof that believers in ghosts are not all dead, I append a specimen of a kind of item that may be found occasionally among the Associated Press dispatchers. Another story. The schooner Jordan lies at the Somerset dock, deserted by her crew, and the owners are unable to procure men to ship in her because she is said to be haunted by the ghost of Captain Thiesher, late commander of the vessel, who was killed 9 days ago while helping unload an anchor. The crew says that the night after the death of the captain, his ghost was on the main deck, slinging the anchors about and creating a disturbance. It is thought that the vessel will be taken to some strange port, repainted, her name erased, in order that a crew may be attained to sail in her. Superstitious Spaniards say that the fatality of 13 at a table has been illustrated by King Alfonso's death. When the king visited Orange? Is that even a real place? Last summer to see the cholera patients, he lunched at the palace and 13 persons sat down to the meal. Noticing the matter, the king gaily referred to the tradition and made his equerry give him a list of the guests, that he might see if any one died within the year. King Alfonso was the first of the 13 to die, and of course, it was all the result of tempting fate by sitting at a table surrounded by an unlucky 13 rats. The days here...
Or was it because they were in a cholera?
They were in a cholera. They had gone to a place with no natural immunity to a cholera colony. How unlucky. The day is here when an intelligent world should bury among other vagaries of paganism the follies of superstition, and remember them only as we remember the days when to disbelieve in witchcraft was a religious heresy, and attempt to unfathom that which has any possibility of being true. I repeat that there is not a superstitious bone in my body. I also opine that since you've read this letter, you vote it foolish. I doubt if you've learned anything at all. I hope it has entertained you, and I get paid by the column. That's why I chuck in some stuff as this, writing some months ago when I was young and giddy.
I get paid by the column, so I padded it out with a lot of nonsense.
There's a lot of detail that didn't exist.
It's just a poem he wrote at the end and his signature.
Oh, he has a fantastic signature. A tramp printer. Should we read the poem?
Why not?
I will not read it in poetry voice. It'll just be regular Allison voice.
I expect you not to.
Well, it's not a secret. I can't deal with poetry voice.
I understand.
I can't deal with fake earnestness. I can't deal with...
I understand.
You hear me laugh and you see me smile and think you that never a care I know, yet my heart is as cold and dull the while as the winter's dress of ice and snow. My mind is not with the laughing throng, and my thoughts are league on league away. On life's dull tide I float along, o'er sleepless night and dreary day, for I am haunted. A ghost? Well, no, sir, ghosts see I none, and spooks would be a relief indeed. There isn't a goblin under the sun to which I would pay the slightest heed. And spirits I scorn, they've naught to me, yet I've never envied the gayest rich. Could I, alas, forget that she is such a charming little witch, by whom I am haunted, and don't you forget it.
Probably talking about
Mary, yeah. That's why he knows the story so well. This is one that you have here for about a policeman.
Oh, there's one more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
There's just a little clip.
Sorry. There's one more.
This is from the Goldsboro Daily Argus in North Carolina, but it refers to Cincinnati.
All right.
The ghost of the late GOP has appeared to Cincinnati policemen in the shape of a black dog. This is what might be called piling it on. I don't understand that at all. What's going on?
Yeah, I think they're saying piling it on. I think they're saying they don't believe the story, basically. They're saying the story's nonsense, but I don't know who GOP was. I guess you might have known back then who that was.
Like Grand Old Party, or?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, the policeman saw a black dog.
All right, so that's the Black Dogs of Ohio, the stories I could find by doing some newspaper searching.
Were you convinced by the tramp to disbelieve?
No, I think
it's all hokum and
I think the tramp is a figure of his time.
Opportunist. He likes to capitalize on the hokum, but doesn't believe in it personally.
I think, magnetism is another, it was a nice term at the time that sort of like quantum physics now,
Yeah.
Oh, that's just magnetism. It's like, okay, you didn't explain it. You just said a word.
Yeah, a word that means the unknowable.
Yeah. So, he's his own brand of skeptic, I suppose, and more power to him. But yeah, I'm sure there's a ton more black dog stories in Ohio. I'm not trying to be, comprehensive with this stuff, but just sort of give an example and get what I find. Again, we're not going to be doing this every week. Mm-hmm. Just every now and then we'll pop in with black dog stories from a different state, different region, something like that. I Have Never Minded the Loneliness, Hermits and Their Stories, is the latest book by Timothy Renner. What compels a person to leave behind society, forsaking family, friends, and the comforts of modern life to live in solitude? The hermits of the 19th and early 20th centuries are as fascinating as they are mysterious. These enigmatic figures often became the focus of public interest, with newspaper stories turning them into local legends, folk heroes, and symbols of a life apart. In I Have Never Minded the Loneliness, you'll discover the extraordinary lives of hermits who defied convention. John Stink, rumored to have died and risen again more than once. William Woodruff, whose long vow of silence followed a broken heart. Brusher Mills, the serpent hunter who sold his own snake oil remedies. And Truman Commodore Downs, who claimed Mars as his homeland. These stories and many more reveal the complex lives of individuals who chose to live apart from the world. I Have Never Minded the Loneliness is available now at Amazon.com or wherever you buy books. All right, I'm glad to see you brought something that's not a postcard for the curiosities this week, Allison.
Trying to diversify.
What do we got here?
This is a copy of Faust. I got kind of playing off of our devil theme of a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an 1892 copy of Faust.
Nice.
And the thing I find interesting about it is because that's kind of a common name around here,
Mm-hmm.
is that it has an ink stamp for a man named Ephraim M. Faust, who owned it. And then Ephraim also signs it. It's in iron ink, so it's got to be pretty old.
Yeah.
And then there's a much more juvenile-looking signature of another age that says Dorothy Faust, who's probably the daughter who inherited it.
Faust owned by Faust. Do they spell it the same way? Or do they?
Yeah, they spell it the same way.
Oh, interesting.
Which I thought was
that's kind of cool.
Kind of fun. The cover is hanging on, but could do with a little bit of a refresher. But it's a nice, it's Hearst & Company, 1890s copy of Faust, which...
All right. You know I love books. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I wonder
if the tragedy. That's a famous plate. I've seen that before. That illustration there.
Is it of Goethe or is it of?
I'm not sure.
Is it supposed to be
Faust?
Faust?
It's supposed to be Faust himself. So, all right.
We're gonna have this book at a Faustian bargain.
It will only cost you your soul.
Yeah. Party of the first part renders up their soul now and forever.
No, this will be our curiosity of the week. I'll take a photograph of this. I'll put it in the show notes. If you click on that, it'll take you to our Etsy shop where you can purchase this book, other curiosities a week, those that are left, and our other offerings at Etsy. What else do we have at Etsy? We've got Strange Familiars t-shirts, patches, and more. We've got my books. If you get them from us on Etsy, I'll sign them before we pack them up. Artwork, prints and originals, including the artwork for tonight's show.
If you finish it.
If I finish it. We've got...
Should I come up with a theme too? Like something for you to draw? So
no, I'll do that.
You got an idea.
I like to just whatever takes my win.
Okay.
That's the way I go with. Allison has various bits of ephemera and other things up there. I keep promising I'm going to make some more paracord rosaries. I literally haven't had time. There's some behind the scenes stuff happening at Strange Familiars here. We're getting ready for something that's coming in August, and I had to do a lot of things with that, a lot of shifting things around in the background. Really, it shouldn't really impact the listeners too much, but it's all stuff I had to do, like on the back end of Strange Familiars kind of stuff. So I haven't had time to make rosaries, but I will make some soon. I'll get the paracord rosaries going. I'll get them back up there.
That seems like a good wintertime thing.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of sit there and sort of meditate and make the rosaries as I go. But our Etsy shop is called Lost Grave. Why? Because they wouldn't let us change the name to Strange Familiars, and we already had Lost Grave. And I think we tried to get Strange Familiars as well, and I think we couldn't get it. I don't think somebody actively has it now, but they did
At
before.
One point somebody did
and
have it.
If anybody ever had it, you can't, I don't know, Etsy's weird. So even though our shop name is Lost Grave, if you type in Strange Familiars in an Etsy search, you should see our stuff come up, and you can get to us that way. There's also links to our Etsy shop in the show notes and at strangefamiliars.com. And as I always say, if you shop at our Etsy shop, it's another way to support the show, and you can get some cool stuff besides. Speaking of artwork, I completed, and I can't say what it is, but I'll announce it when I can. I completed a comic book cover, which I think Strange Familiars listeners will be very interested in. So when I am allowed to announce it, I will. It's for an independent publisher, by which I mean not Marvel DC, but it should be available in comic shops and so forth. Riverbend Comics will certainly have it when it comes out. I think the first issue of the series, comes out in October. I believe my cover is for the second issue of the series, so I'm guessing probably the following month, probably November. I will make it loud. I'll make it known when it comes out. I will have multiple copies, and you'll be able to get signed copies through me or through John at Riverbend for sure when it comes out. again, I'll let everybody know about it as soon as I'm allowed to talk about it. When I'm allowed to share the art, I will share it. You've seen it. I think it's a pretty neat piece of artwork.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. So I'm happy for that. I love doing comic book covers, and I hope it turns into more comic book cover artwork jobs in the future. I'll let everybody know. I think that's it.
That's it.
All right.
We're out of here.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. By the way, I know I promised new albums this year.
It's not going to happen.
No, they are. They're pretty much done. I wanted to do a remix of the one and offer it like with the first, I don't know, however many copies, get the remix with it. And I'm not sure about the remix. So I'm sort of sitting with that for a while. I'm going to go back and listen to it a few more times. I might have to remix the remix.
Oh.
To get it where I want. I'm not sure. But all the artwork's done. It's ready to go. It's just a matter of me getting the audio finally to a point where I want it. And that'll be 2 albums, The Sacred Heart of Hum and The Secret Heart of Hum. So at some point, I'll get them done. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars. We're on Instagram @strangefamiliars, one word, no underscore. Please give us a follow on Instagram. Like I said, subscribe to us on YouTube @strangefamiliars. There is the channel. You don't have to become a member of the channel to subscribe. You can subscribe for free, and then you can become a member later if you'd like to. But do subscribe, because I believe we're going to be trying to do some live streams and stuff coming up there. And strangefamiliars.com/merch is where you go for merch, and strangefamiliars.com for everything else. Got links to everything we do, and et cetera, et cetera.
Sounds good.
All right.
Stop our songs, we shall play, they can stop